Thank you very much. One of the things that I'd like to talk about today is this concept of Chaordic design. It was not something that I created, but it's something that I've adapted towards a model that we found to become very successful. To do so, I want to tell you first a little bit about my story, and then I'll tell you about some of the stories of the people who have participated in this process. Right? My background is that of, I started with a background in molecular biology and computer science. And so I'm constantly interested in how to measure things and how to optimize things, right? And in my quest for optimization, I am constantly looking to optimize everything, optimize time, optimize processes, to have, to do something really great, right? Things that we are trying to do ourselves. And in doing so, I think Daft Punk probably said it best, right? Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger. That's what we're trying to do. Right? So, and trying to do this process, we don't just want to do things. We want to do things amazingly, right? Steve Jobs says that he's trying to make a dent in the universe, right? I say that I'm trying to have a greater impact on the world around me. That is my stated goal. How can I do that? I learned very quickly, in order to do that, I had to do more of something, whatever it was, right? And so as I'm starting to do more, and for the past 10 years of my life, I have constantly been working up the food chain, right? Working the corporate ladder of America. I starting out as a consultant, and then as a senior consultant, and then as a manager and a senior manager, constantly thinking, I'm going to have a greater impact in the world around me, right? If I can just do one thing, I can only do X, right? If I can manage 2 people, I can do 2X, and constantly going and going and going. The problem is there's a limit to this. You can't make a dent in the universe by doing this, right? And so we begin with the birth of a chaotic age. Chaotic is a portmanteau. It's a combination of 2 words. It means chaos and order, right? And the slide I just showed you in terms of a business organizational chart, that is a completely ordered environment. In order to do something or make something happen, you have to tell someone to do something. You are the bottleneck, right? Instead, all this started because I'm constantly trying to optimize something, right? And a number of us got rejected from one of the conferences, of course, right? Trying to have an impact in the world around me. And we realized very quickly that, there's a lot of people getting rejected. That conferences themselves are limited by 2 factors, by space and time, right? There's only a certain amount of space, as we see here today, and there's only a certain amount of time. Only 2-3 days, 1 day for the event. So someone says, why don't you go off and start your own conference? And in doing so, right, you can hear yourself speak. That's incredibly self-serving. And a spark of kind of thought, I said, wait a minute. I'm not interested in doing a little thing. I'm interested in having a greater impact in the world around me. So instead, we created a framework of events, right, that lowered the barrier to entry for participation. And that's a key point. Because you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for others. You're enabling other people. They have no experience in running events. They have no experience in putting on something like this to create their own events. We've seen this many times, right? And so the focus here is to stop building product and start building tools so that other people can build product, right? And so you think to yourself, okay, so we started a group called Security B-Sides. Again, background in information security, right? And as you might think, all right, that's great, there's a framework, and then each of the different conferences or mini events that are occurring is the actual product. Wrong. And it took me actually a little while to figure that out. Each of the actual events is actually a tool in and of itself that enables individuals that are interested in organizing an event to bring in more people, to have other kinds of conversations. In fact, the conversations that were happening within these events were themselves a tool, right? And so in doing so, we started some of these events. In fact, they started to become so popular, we had an event in London sell out 200 people before a single speaker was posted to the list, right? And in doing so, we started to see more and more of these events happening. And they were all benefiting each other, right? In that, some of my favorite events were those that were happening in St. John's, Nova Scotia, or Rochester, New York, or Detroit, Michigan. And each of these events, it would have been very difficult for them to actually get people to show interest unless they were part of the whole. And the whole didn't really have a lot of value until we saw all these different events occurring all over the place. 3 people didn't start YouTube so that they could individually upload more than 35 hours of video every minute, right? People, no one started Wikipedia thinking, oh, you know what, I'm going to rewrite the entirety of human knowledge and provide it universally to everyone on the planet. That's not how things happen. It's not by building product, it's by building tools that enable other people to build product. And in doing so, they will use those tools to build other tools that they will build upon. Again, Facebook, their stated goal, to connect people. Right? Let's put a dent in the universe. We see things all over. There's lots of different examples. In fact, TEDx itself is an example, right, of a situation where instead of just building an event, we're building frameworks that enable people to host their own events. In fact, each of you that are here today should remember this. Because again, you are not a product, you are the tool. You're going to leave here today, and it's important that you take this with you. That you remember that you are the individual that is going to go off and create something else, and something else, and something else. All right, so first, a few ground rules for the organization, right? First, do no harm. We want to put on positive experiences. We want people to be able to come together to have positive events. In fact, one of the things we realized very quickly is that we were trying to have the balance between a conference and an actual mingling of people. So we found situations where sometimes people would come to the conference or the mini event, right, and they wouldn't actually attend any of the talks. They just came to hang out with their friends, right? To network, to build relationships that are going to last a lot longer than one person standing on stage could ever present upon. The next is that everyone is a participant. We use very, very specific language. You've heard this word used many times today. It's very key. There are no innocent bystanders at these events, right? The speaker is a participant. The sponsors are participants. The volunteers are participants. You in the audience are a participant, asking questions, engaging, having those conversations. Also, everything is free. The Great Leveler. So each of these events is free to anyone that wants to come. All of the food is free. The event is free. It is all free. So there is no limiting factor. It's not something that only exclusive people can get into, right? Imagine a commons area where anyone could come together from any socioeconomic level, right, and to participate in that conversation. And once we started to do this, we started seeing events popping up all over the place. In fact, each year we see a doubling of the number of events that occurs. We have had so far events, 30 events on 3 different continents with 2 other continents looking to start events. This is something that in a typical business framework, completely organized structure could not exist. It would not happen, right? We want to lower the barrier to participation so that individuals can go out and create great things. Now, I've told you my story. Let me tell you the story about another. In creating each of these events, we thought it was great because not only could we put on events, but other people could put on events. And the whole goal, again, was thinking that the event was the product, but we were wrong. A gentleman by the name of Joseph he lived in Dallas. He came to one of the events in Austin, right? Not only did he come, he participated as a speaker. He submitted a talk, came as a speaker, and he was listening, and he said, a lot of people, his talk was on how difficult it was to break into the industry. And there was about 50 people in the room and about 5 times as many listening on the live stream. So many people were interested in helping him out break into the industry, right? He goes back and he tells his boss. He said, I just spoke at a conference. They're like, what? Who are you? Right? Well, he applies for another one of these events later on in Boston. His boss is like, you're getting accepted to speak at all these conferences? You're just getting started in the industry, right? His boss actually ended up flying into Boston to be able to present. And he spoke on how amazing it was, the outpouring of help that people had brought to him. Within 12 months, he was back in Dallas putting on his own Security B-Sides event, right? That 12-month cycle is exactly what we're looking for. The biggest benefit I get out of any of these events is not the actual event itself. It's when people come up and go, this is so amazing, this is so cool, how can I do this in my local city, right? So in terms of lessons learned, the call to action that I want for each of you as you leave here today. Does anyone know how to win an eating contest? You do so by not swallowing. Counterintuitive, right? Your body will naturally swallow if you keep putting food in your mouth. It's true. Involve other people. Do not think that you are the great, center of whatever it is that you're doing. Involve other people. The most successful events, most successful projects are those that continuously improve and involve more people. Critical constraints, right? Don't get in the way of smart people. Again, You cannot be self-focused in these types of projects. You need to involve more people and continuously delegate, continuously allow people to stand up, right? How in the world do we provide everything for free and the live streaming and everything? Because people step up and they say, I have a really strong ability to understand physical security and how to usher people in and out. I have a big understanding of this. And taking those people and putting them in positions that enable them to be their best. And also, making things happen. Seth Godin said, the Beatles did not invent teenagers. They simply stood up and led them. Right? One of the lessons learned that I had was that early on in the process, we actually tried to get everyone to put on these events. It was the coolest thing in the world. You can't push someone into something. Instead, we took the opposite approach. We actually said, don't do these events. And when someone came to us knocking down the door and said, no, I want to put this on, we said, amazing, great, you are the perfect person for this. Right? And in doing so, we found that ultimately at the end, what you need to be doing is not trying to force people or sell something into something. Instead, what you're doing is you're taking people that are naturally organized to a certain way, you're standing up and leading them. And that's what we find that people that put on these events are actually doing. Become a heretic to the status quo. Stand up and believe that you can do something, even if that's not what your background is, even if that's not what your innate knowledge and history is. Form some of these things. And in closing, a really important quote that came from Dee Hock, actually the person that founded Visa. He's the person that came up with this term, chaordic. Right? He says, it's not a failure to fall short of realizing all that we might dream. The failure is to fall short of dreaming all that we might realize. It's important for you to go home today to take these lessons learned, right? To not leave TEDx and think, I went to a great event. Said, I participated in a great event, and I am going to go home and continue that participation in my community and the world around me. Thank you very much.